there. I think some of the folks that usually come to this meeting are there as well. So that's pretty cool. It's probably nice to see them in person.
Just wander around in the hall with my laptop and be like, join the WUG right here.
That's awesome. Okay, you guys. Well, it is that time, and others, of course, are welcome to join in. Hey, Joe and Sarah and Carl and Shane. Good to see all you guys. All right, let me just do a little screen share here. And we will do this one. Yes. Perfect. Okay, maybe I'll. Okay, can you guys see that? My WUG slides?
Yep, I see it.
Okay, perfect. Oh, it is not April 8th. Whoops. Okay. But at least I got the person right? So we do have the conversation starter today. It is actually May 13th. So oopsie on that. I'll fix that in a moment here. Alexei from the School of Engineering at Rutgers University is going to be talking about Warewulf 4 with Ansible playbooks. So we're very excited about that. So any and all experience or questions that you have about Ansible and Warewulf and kind of where the line is and what you're doing with it, we want to hear about that today. So keep your chat open, put the questions in there, put the comments in there. When we get to the Q&A part, unmute yourself. We want to hear from you. This is definitely your guys' opportunity as the Warewulf User Group. Oops, there we go. My name is Rose Stein, Community Manager for the Warewulf Project. Very nice to meet you. I think I know most of you. We have met before, so thanks for being here and being in attendance. The WUG, we try to do these every month. So far, so good. Since we've started, we've gotten in here and we've done a WUG every month. So it'll be the second Wednesday at this same time. Jonathon Anderson, he is with us today. He's going to be doing some project and community updates. He's the technical steering committee lead. And then, of course, we have Alexei. So wonderful for you to be here. Going to be talking about Warewulf with Ansible, do a little presentation, get the conversation started for us. And then, of course, we're going to have a little Q&A with the pack. Just a little thank you to our Warewulf Technical Steering Committee. That is Gregory Kurtzer from CIQ, Jonathan at CIQ, Christian at SUSE, Timothy at Internet 2, and of course, Jeremy from Intel. So you can see that this project is being supported and maintained by a variety of different people and companies, and we're so grateful for you. If you want to join the Technical Steering Committee, we would love to have you. The meetings are open. You're welcome to come on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. You can reach out to any of us or just put it in the Slack that you want to join. You're welcome to join the meeting. If you want to join the actual Technical Steering Committee, talk to Jonathan about that. Just a little update on how we're doing. I think we actually have one more addition. If you look in the Slack, there's 689 members now, which is awesome. We've got a YouTube channel, so you can go over there and subscribe to it. We've only got 53 subscribers, but hey, you know what? That is 53 more than we had just a few months ago. So thank you for being there. We have a Blue Sky account. We also have an x.com account. I'm actually trying to get in there. I don't know. The 29 followers is actually from last month, but that one was actually set up by Greg, and it's got the 2-factor. So I've got to wait for him to have some time to get a text and let me know, but I'll get in there soon. Okay, so Jonathan, this is your time for updates. Do you want me to keep this slide up, or do you want to do something?
Yeah, let me do a screen share real quick, and I'll pull up the release notes. So as of last night, at the very literally the 11th hour, I got the 4.7.0 release out. Thank you there, Rose, and I'll pull this up. So we've been working on this for a little while, and it was delayed beyond what we want, but here it is. So if you there's a release notification in the news section on the website. There's a link to that in Slack. And then what I really recommend checking out is the release notes. So if you go to warewulf.org/docs and go to either the 4.7 or the main section of the docs, you can find these release notes that we've been generating for each release. This is the first time that I tried starting this with a language model. So I have found at least one typo that I need to go back and fix, where it's calling these network overlays. And they are not all network overlays, but I tried to edit it, but it was getting late. But some major things to look at. We did do a pretty big documentation audit for this release, so that's always a work in progress. Documentation always will be, but we're trying to keep that up to date. And there's a new quick reference guide. People have been asking for that. We fixed a bunch of typos and mistakes by auditing it against the code, so that should be in a good state. Um, a little while back, we broke the ability to unset certain fields with the command line. You could do it with editing the YAML, of course, but because we were type checking, let's say an IP address, the previous way you would unset something is to set it to an all caps unset value, which that's not a valid IP address, so it would fail. So we've added this Warewulf control unset command that can unset arbitrary fields, and then cleaned up a little bit about unsetting certain things within a node or profile. So check that out. Little convenience thing there. One of the bigger changes that should be invisible to most people is that we did a bunch of refactoring and re-architecting of the Warewulf server daemon itself. In the past, the server responded almost entirely over this /provision URL, and then had parameters that it was passing through for what you wanted to get from the server. We had already started the work to have these per function URLs that the server exports, but we weren't actually using them, and they didn't all work properly. So those are all working properly now. Downstream clients should be using these new URLs. By default, this one still exists. So if you have like an older Warewulf client that's trying to attach to it, then that should continue to work. But these new URLs work and are good. And we've also added a /files URL. So if you drop files or templates in by default, like varlib Warewulf files, those will be served out of this /files route. And we're not using that for anything internally today. It's there as a convenience for you. One thing that Christian has been talking about wanting to use it for is either switch configuration, so you could drop like a config file there that your switch could pull, or cloud init, which we're not doing today yet, but that's kind of where we're headed with that. One more thing for the server is that we have added preliminary support for encrypting server communications with TLS. So there's configuration for making that required for runtime overlays and the API, which handle authentication and credentials. So there's a way to require it. But if it's enabled and you have it'll manage certs for you and create a self-signed cert for you. If you have that all enabled, then you can talk to it at any of those URLs with TLS. So, not done there. I'm sure we'll do more with it in the future, but initial support is present in this release. One thing that we removed that hopefully no one was using anymore is we previously supported the ability to pull single files out of an overlay and single overlays where normally they're bundled together in an image per node. That's a legacy feature that's been there for a really long time that we really don't use as part of the normal Warewulf process, part of the provisioning process, but it was hanging on because there were some use cases where people were using it as a general purpose file server. And so that's replaced by this, well, wherever it is now, this files route that the Warewulf server is exporting. So not something we've ever really recommended people do. If you do get hit by this, please reach out in the Slack and let us know what you're trying to accomplish, and we'll try and make sure that that continues to work in a way that's meaningful. But yeah, so those capabilities that have been legacy for a while have been removed now. Also internal, not something most people should care about, is that unless you're going to help develop Warewulf, there used to be a bunch of kind of Baroque gRPC API library stuff inside of the code that wasn't used anymore for exporting a gRPC API, but the command line was still calling through all of those libraries anyway. And so all that's been removed and extracted in the call paths from the command line to the libraries that actually manage the Warewulf server. That's all been simplified. And so if you're contributing to Warewulf, that should make it quite a bit easier to do. There's some new overlays for managing cronny and enhancements for NetPlan and sync user. One thing that's really cool about the sync user stuff now is that you can use Warewulf resources to define arbitrary users and groups that you want to define on or realize on your nodes. And so if you have specific static users that you want in there and you don't want to deal with an LDAP, one example might be the Slurm user or the Slurm Munge user. You can just put those right in your werewolfnodes.conf, and that'll get populated out on nodes without having to put it into your images directly. So that's kind of cool. Kind of near the end of the development cycle for this, someone raised an issue that if you strip the white space around the file function, particularly in an overlay or an overlay template, but then we also found that this happens with the soft link and import link functions as well, that the way we were handling those functions, it broke. And because it was line parsing the output of the template to see where new files should start or where a symlink should be created. So all of that's been cleaned up. It now does all of that work out of band and not in the template itself, like not in the output of the template. So now you can have the specific use case someone was trying to do is create empty Sentinel files, and you can do that now. And they're also just generally less fragile, so that's good. Maybe the last thing I'll talk about specifically is that we've upped the Golang version that we're building Warewulf with to 1.25.5. We discussed this with the OpenHPC community. That's why we hadn't updated in the past, because we believed there to be a more stringent, lower numbered version of Golang that was available for OpenEuler that we wanted to continue to support. And they're now getting Golang from, I forget what, like a third-party repository for OpenEuler. So they're able to build Warewulf in that environment, even with a Golang 1.25.5 now. So that made it easier for us to update a bunch of libraries that depended on a newer Golang version. And as a result, we fixed a whole bunch of reported security and CVE type vulnerabilities, a whole bunch that were in like standard lib from Golang itself. But then I think I did even like 4 more of them yesterday. All of the Dependabot library reports that were filed against the project, all of those have been addressed in 4.7. So we should be better able to keep on top of that in the future now that we have the ability to just always run a supported Golang. So that's good. There are other bug fixes and things in here too, and then the changelog itself is a little bit more extensive, but that's most of the big stuff, and happy to take any questions if people have them. Otherwise, try it out. Let us know if you run into any trouble. Maybe one last thing that's worth talking about is that we bumped to 4.7, and we're going to be a bit more stringent about this than we have been in the past. We had apparently already decided to do this, but just weren't doing it. So the next planned release of Warewulf will be not 4.7.1, but 4.8. And that leaves that third digit for us to backport bug fixes and security fixes if we would like to do that. So if you do find a bug that's hitting you with this, we might be able to fast track a 4.7.1 or something like that without our normal kind of full release cycle. But otherwise, we'll be working on the 4.8 milestone that you can find in GitHub, and let us know if there's something that you want to see in that.
Woo,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you did that, Jonathan. Thank you. Would have been lackluster with me. So that was a lot. Thank you everyone for who's been working on that as well. I think maybe, and I don't know, I can sort of speak for you guys. You can all speak for yourself, and please just, unmute if you have a question or a comment. But the migration path, sometimes it's been a little chunky. Like how have you seen that so far?
Yeah, so it should be pretty straightforward. We're still just using that Werewolf control upgrade command. There's not a lot that's changed that's user facing, and what has changed is not like removal of things in or changing of things that are in the nodes.conf or werewolf.conf. It's really just adding new parameters that you wouldn't have had before. So at most, you should just run Werewolf control upgrade and it should be fine. But as we do recommend doing an upgrade like this, either in a test environment or during a downtime or something, and back up your werewolf.conf and nodes.conf ahead of time. But it can also tell you what changes it would make to those files without actually doing them, if you want to check that out.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and that's assuming that they're on 4.6 something.
So it is, so that's fair. The upgrade would be more extensive if you're coming from 4.5, but the path is the same. It's meant to be able to upgrade from any prior version of Warewulf 4. So if you install 4.7 and run Warewulf control upgrade config and Warewulf control upgrade, I think it's nodes, it will do its best to upgrade what it finds in place and make it valid for a 4.7 environment. If you're coming from 4.5, I think it's 4.5. The biggest thing that catches people out is the move to split overlays. Especially if you had changed any of the overlays that come with the system, those changes remain in place and then shadow the new kind of upstream formal place that those overlays are. So that's something where if you're coming from 4.5 or earlier and you've made changes to the upstream overlays, don't hesitate to reach out on Slack or to us at CIQ, and we'll be happy to help out with that.
I think that was actually your background, somebody talking. I wasn't
Oh,
sure
yes.
if somebody had come off of mute or, yeah, I mean, if any comments, questions, I did see a couple little hearts and a couple little clapping. So that was, that was some good response.
Okay, yeah, and I'm always hanging out in Slack. So if there's no questions here and people have questions later, don't hesitate to just ask in the general channel or ping me, and yeah, we'll talk about it more. Thanks,
Cool.
Rose.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone. Okay, Alexei, it's your time. We're so excited to hear your little presentation, what you've been doing with Warewulf, your experience with Ansible. You should be able to share screen if you want to do that. I also have your slides if you want me to share it. It's up to
No,
you.
I'll share it. I'll share it. Okay. Oops. Do you guys see it? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, well, greetings from New Jersey, Rutgers. My name is Alexei Kotelnikov, and I've been running computational clusters at the School of Engineering for many years. And I'm gonna tell you a story how I arrived at using Warewulf and how we actually started using it. The topic is a little bit misleading. I came up with it after I already made the slides, and then it's kind of like a little different. Ansible is, and you know what Ansible is, but in this case, Ansible is not for managing remote systems, essentially for managing and deploying the nodes within Warewulf. But anyway, motivation for Warewulf 4, well, gonna explain why, and it essentially came from using the traditional installations we had at the School of Engineering. Then now we're doing, essentially we finished migration to Warewulf 4 of the main engineering cluster. And I'm gonna explain how we automate node deployment with Ansible. And in the end, I wanna talk about my future plans and pick up your brains on something you have probably better idea than me. Well, considering like the last 5 years of running clusters, we had diskful install where we had NFS-root, and nodes would be bootable with PXE TFTP. NFS-root would be mounted as read-only, and then we just run bootstrap to actually partition disks with scripts, bootstrap installation onto the disks, and reboot systems and just use Ansible to finish up the install and do management later on. Then we tried the so-called diskless OS when we had an FS-root mountable on compute nodes with FSC option that allowed running cache files D to cache all the reads from the NFS. Say you want to open a file, it will take longer time to pull the file from the NFS server, but then it will stay in the cache on the local SSD and open up next time much quicker. But this was still not perfect because you would need to rely on NFS server. Sometimes when NFS server becomes like hit by many compute nodes, you see NFS server is not responding, NFS server okay in the logs, very familiar to you. So we wanted to come at using a modern diskless system, which would give us a single system image, and all cluster installation would be easy scalable by increasing the number of nodes. Also would allow us to do different boot environments. Say you want to boot from Debian into Rocky or something, we would be able to do it on the fly. And then operating system restore and upgrade. And then I started looking into XCAD. Was in early 2024 when XCAD essentially was on the way out. It was not on the way out. The development stopped for XCAD at NCAR. So I started looking at something else and came across with Warewulf 4, which was emerged a few years before then. And I started looking at it, and I just said, okay, this is something I want to try, but I want to try it safely in some environment that will allow me to get it deployed and tested. Coincidentally, I was running a project in summer of 2024. It was internship for students, college students and high school students. I was given 5 high school students who wanted to learn Linux. So I taught them Linux and gave them Warewulf 4 as a project to deploy and try. So we had Proxmox server with multiple Alexei containers. By the way, our essentially shop is Proxmox based, Proxmox and Debian. Like when it comes to servers, to run Slurm, to run DHCP, whatever, it's within Alexei and Proxmox. Anyway, so each student got Alexei container where they have downloaded Warewulf 4 sources, compiled, installed, set up their own DHCP servers. It was really like not easy to manage different DHCPs running on the same network because host was stealing IP addresses from different DHCP servers. But anyway, so we managed to do that. They installed Warewulf, then built containers, configured nodes, did disk partitioning and file system installation with Ignition, and played with overlays. And they booted up Supermicro Blaze, bare metal systems with Warewulf 4, and everything looks fine. I checked it out and tried to reproduce it myself. It worked nicely. So I decided to proceed with production deployment of Warewulf 4 on the engineering cluster, which is quite heterogeneous in terms of hardware because we have different types of compute nodes, we have different types of CPUs, EPICs, Intels of different generations. We have multiple networks, including gigabit, 10 gig, and FDR InfiniBand. Some nodes have GPUs. Again, like the generation spawns from NVIDIA T4 to quite recent ones, H200. So yeah, we need Warewulf to be able to handle all of these differences in the hardware. We also have NFS servers with ZFS and BGFS cluster file system we need to mount on the compute nodes. So I started crafting Warewulf 4 for this environment, set it up on Proxmox in quite tidy container, which has 8 GB of RAM, 250 GB of disk space, and 2 CPU cores. Just gave it as a start, and it was suitable quite good for Warewulf D for the controller node. And also it's running the Slurm daemons, slurmctl and slurmdbd. So I started with version 4.54. It was in winter of 2025. Compiled it from source, then downloaded the Debian 12 container, actually not container, the configuration for Podman, built Podman container, exported into VNFS, and started copying it into different containers for different host groups. Since we have heterogeneous hardware, I put the hosts in the different groups, set up different overlays, and then I decided just to put everything in YAML file, the configuration for each node. And then I said, okay, why don't I use Ansible to manage node deployment? So I have inventory with hosts. I have host groups, and I set up two playbooks, one to run DHCP update when I add a new compute node in the inventory, and then another playbook is to run Warewulf for deployment for a node. Here is a snippet from the inventory for one of the compute nodes. So we have a compute node. And I put everything that I may need to use from the compute node later on, mainly in Warewulf 4. So put like the type of the hardware, type of the OS, then all the interfaces, the ones I will be using and the ones I won't be using, but may be using at some point later on, MAC addresses, IP addresses, and also tag each interface. Then like some interfaces are like standard GIGI, some of them 10 GIGI, and the management interface would be BMC. And this is for disks. Like for example, Epic nodes have two SSDs. One we use for volatile storage, the TMP. So I put the actually the serial number or like UID for the disk because it's easier to set up a disk based on UID other than just the numbers like SD, SDB, because they can change later on for the same drives. Then the second is non-volatile for Scratch, where we have another SSD, Samsung 500 gig. Each of them is 500 gig. And then I set up a playbook. The first playbook updates the DHCP. We're not using the DHCP that comes with Warewulf 4. We have our own standalone DHCP. And then there is another one that updates, which basically provisions the nodes. This one is you can recognize if you've been using Ansible. It taps into the inventory and gives the list of hosts that match the variable nodes. The variable nodes comes in the command line for the node I want to provision, and then it does the loop all over the list of the nodes. And there is the internal loop that essentially is applied that applies the tasks to the nodes, like to each node, and you can recognize. Essentially, it's not sophisticated. It does essentially like commands to deploy a node and set the parameters for the network. So whatever, like the outer items is the host name for the node. And then when we deploy the node, there is the container name. As I said, I had different containers for different host groups, so it comes into here. And then I do the same procedure, wwctl command for all the like all the network interfaces. Then do similar tasks for the disks, for the ignition to deploy the disk. As I said, we deploy the disks by UUID, which is unique for a disk, comes from the inventory, and this actually taps to the record for the UUID. And then at the end, essentially, we just build overlays. In principle, I could have done a little bit more sophisticated tasks in Ansible to put the entries right into node.conf file, but it was recommended not to touch it because YAML is very sensitive to like idents and it's easy to screw it up. So I just decided to use wwctl. And this is how we deploy a node, put entries in the inventory file and run the playbook for DHCP. And this is the playbook to essentially provision a node. And yeah, this actually is the playbook. It picks up the parameters for the node name I want to add and the container type I want to attach to the node. And then just do the power reset on the node, because we already have the BMC settings in the inventory, since the node was already like placed in node.conf file by the playbook. The node gets rebooted, and then we check its status, see if it's up. It's there. All right, so it can be added to the cluster. In case we need to change the operating system on the node, we can easily just delete the node, say SO Epic 05, run the same playbook, but with a different container, power cycle the node, and get it up and running. So, for example, Rocky 9 is the container which I have the tools to update the hardware, like firmware on the network cards and Centra. And whenever I need to do it on certain nodes, I just put into Rocky 9 this way. It will take less than a minute to switch the OS for the node from the default Debian 12 to whatever I need. Now, just to summarize what I said, adding a node while using Ansible is very straightforward. Just add it in the inventory, run the playbook, and then reboot the node with wwctl power command. Cluster nodes can be easily restored with Ansible playbooks. And here's the story where I really took advantage of it. When it came to upgrade from Warewulf 4.5.4 to 4.6.4, I just ran over. I didn't read the memo about what I needed to do all the prerequisites with the configurations and whatever. I just download the source, compile it, and make install into the original 4.5.4 installation. And then I read what I should have done. Well, you know what happened. If you have done the upgrade, you know the procedure. And then I decided, okay, I'm not gonna spend time on troubleshooting and fixing the newly installed Warewulf. I decided just to save my containers and the overlays, wipe the original Warewulf installation, did new install from source compilation, got Warewulf running, ran the Ansible playbook, and bam, I got all the nodes showing up. Well, and the cluster was actually running at the same time, and it didn't hurt any jobs, didn't hurt anything like running on the compute nodes. And this was the beauty of Warewulf. You can really do something like anything with the Warewulf unless you rely on the runtime overlays. But in my case, I wasn't really. It was, I would say, something like I really loved. You can, I mean, have everything, all your cluster configuration in the inventory, have the right playbooks, and don't be afraid to wipe the whole Warewulf installation, because with such setup, you can restore everything easily. When it comes to upgrade operating systems on the compute nodes, it will essentially be bringing a new container and attaching it to the compute nodes. And that's it. Now, what I want to do next, I want to also add profiles and overlays as templates in my Ansible setup. And now I want to pick up your brain, guys. If someone tells me how I can penetrate into the VNFS containers with Ansible, I will also Ansibilize container provisioning and deployment. And then actually that will allow me to build a turnkey solution just with playbooks, install Warewulf, deploy the nodes, overlays, profiles, and that's it. But yeah, this is something I really wanna see your ideas about. And at the end, just wanna mention about informative links. Warewulf user guide, everyone knows, our Slack channel, which I recently joined, and I love it. That you guys are pros. It's nice to be there. For those who haven't started using Warewulf and considers, specifically Warewulf 4, there are 3 good articles published in Admin Magazine by Jeff Layton. This actually is a journey for beginner to Warewulf 4. So they can read and see what they need to do to get started. And as I said, I see there are a few questions. All right, let me close the slides. And
I think this was a response here. Scott was responding to your your Ansible question there at the end. Scott, did you want to come off mute and speak to that? I mean, you've put some great stuff in the chat here that I'm sure he'll just copy over.
Yeah, I can if you want. Yeah, you can actually do a cherooted environment directly into there with Ansible. And if you wanted to test that, I mean, my playbooks are super simple, but like my little Rocky hardening, I'll just link one of these to you, and then you go right to the cherooted environment, and you just do whatever modifications you're doing. In my case, I was adding a node exporter and a bunch of packages to my environment, and that's how you do it. And then you just run that playbook against the cherooted environment. In my call, since I do my hosts as cheroots, I have to give a -- extra vars, and then give the cheroots equals, and then Rocky 10 or Rocky 11. That's all I do. And
yeah, if you can give me like a snippet of the playbook, I'm more concerned. I'm more interested in like the connection. Because for example, I know that Ansible can manage Kubernetes, and this will be essentially like running Kubernetes for the containers. But I can't really like get a connection to VNFS. But since you mentioned like in the root environment, yeah, I'd like to try.
Yeah, try it. Give it a try. You might need to install. There's a Ansible Galaxy that you have to install for the general community. Yeah, you might have to do that, but I could find that and link it if you want it. But give me a second.
Would be great. So it will save my miles. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Scott. All right. Yeah. Okay. So this is pretty much it I wanted to talk about. Now let me see. There are more. Okay. Yeah. I see. This snippet from the playbook. All right. Cool. Very good. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Yeah, this is really helpful. Very good. And overall, Warewulf 4 is something I would like to proceed in switching from the traditional installation of the cluster. I have several clusters at the School of Engineering used for different by different research groups, and like the whole logistics of Warewulf 4 does really fit into the configurations I like, and this is what I will proceed with. And eventually, yeah, like using Ansible. As I said, Ansible here is not like a traditional Ansible when you set up playbooks and run it to do installation on remote hosts. It's just to do a provisioning of the compute nodes, and then I want to do provisioning of the containers later.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for presenting. I'm gonna give you a little.
Oh, my pleasure.
Little clap here. I'd be curious as to, and I know probably some of you are like on the phone or in the middle of doing something else or whatever's happening, but I'd be curious of how many of the rest of you guys are using Ansible as well for various automation, and then also while you guys are, I don't know, putting in the chat or raising a hand or something like that, if you're using Ansible. Alexei, I'd be curious. You said that you've got a few different clusters. Curious.
Yeah, one is very kind of like classical with a disk pool install, and we use Ansible just to run updates of configuration and install additional packages. Essentially, deploy the software. And two more clusters we use with NFS-root, but the NFS-root definitely will be converted into Warewulf 4. And the main cluster for the engineering, it's kind of like it was like all disk pool install. Last summer, I converted like half disk install and half Warewulf, and they share the same network and the same filers. And gradually, I moved most of the nodes to Warewulf 4. And as I said, Ansible, yeah, is really like helps to make things quick and restore things. In case with my upgrade from 4.5.4.4 to 5.6.4, it was really a saver. Because yeah, just ran playbooks and got everything up and running. Even the compute nodes with the images deployed earlier with 464, actually with 454 continued running, and they showed up in WWCTL node status fine, and there was no any harm made to the cluster and running jobs when I scoped up Warewulf. Yeah, that's really robust environment.
Scott says they use it professionally to harden to STIGs. Yes. Yes, we use Ansible at CIQ as well to do a lot of that kind of stuff too, because then you can kind of customize it to your environment and how you need it, and then set however you want to get notified. Yeah, and on government projects. Yeah. Oh, and Bill's saying, yeah, we use Ansible for node configuration. We use XCAP or Warewulf, more for the provisioning side. Yep. And then hand those nodes over to Ansible for most node configuration. Our approach with Ansible mirrors our past use of Puppet. Yeah. I still hear Puppet sometimes. Salt occasionally as well.
Yeah, like the beauty of Ansible that you need only SSH to run configuration and installation on the nodes, because essentially the way it works, you have SSH and you should be able to elevate privileges, and then when you run a playbook, essentially what Ansible does, it throws a Python module on the remote system, so you need to have Python installed as well, and then does all the settings for your installations and etc. With Puppet, you do need to run an agent, same as for Salt, and then you can use Ansible for anything, for compute nodes, for switches, for routers, for swimming pools, for anything.
I know one of the guys I was working with, he was showing me how he has the lights in his house automated with Ansible.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, that's really going large here. David says we run Ansible inside WW control container exec so that Warewulf deployed nodes are immediately available.
Oh. Okay, so it's Ansible inside the container. Okay. Yeah, principally I can transfer, essentially you can get a shell access to the container and mount a local file system with playbooks and run them there. I was thinking about doing that, but I like the idea with root Scott suggested.
Yeah, that's probably the simplest and the cleanest. Yeah, there's lots of ways to use Ansible. It's funny. Someone actually asked me the other day, because I always assume that everyone knows everything, which is not true. That's why we have these sorts of meetings, right? It's like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? How are you doing it? And sharing resources, and then also I mean, sometimes it's just trial and error. Sometimes you hear it in conversation. But he said, I said, are you using Ansible? Because at CIQ, we have like a supported platform for Ansible. And sometimes it's, it's awesomely helpful. And he was like, well, what would I use it for? And then I just got stumped. I'm like, well, everything. Like I couldn't even, express all the different things that you can do with Ansible. So this is really cool. Scott says, some of us learned this the hard way and we'd save everyone else the trouble. Yes, that too. Yeah, there's probably some things that should not be done. Or some ways that you do it that you just make your life harder. You know what I mean? Like as you're learning how to actually write a proper script or a playbook for yourself. Yeah, we've seen that too. Oftentimes our customers will come to us and be like, uh-oh, I think I went around and around and around, and there could be just like a direct way to do it, which of course, after time and expertise. Bill says we use more of a webhook to trigger the Ansible playbook run from a central Ansible node running semaphore UI. Oh, that's a new one for me. Semaphore? I'll have to look that up. Are you familiar with semaphore?
No, it's the first time I hear it. Yeah, it looks like there are people who know how to use Ansible better than myself, and
I
yeah,
mean,
well, the
there's
place
always
to learn,
someone, right?
definitely. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
cool.
Oh, here we go. Semaphore UI, modern UI and powerful API for Ansible. Bill, did you want to come off mute and like share a little bit more about that experience?
Sure. So it's essentially kind of an open source project, even though I don't think it's maybe not considered open source, but shared code at least. But it's a little bit more similar to Ansible automation platform. So there's a web GUI that lets our different teams have access to different clusters and run stuff manually via Ansible. But the main thing we use is a webhook that allows once node one is up and provisioned, calls the webhook, and it triggers an Ansible run on that particular node. So it's pretty close to real time. It's not 100% real time, but I mean, it fires off as each node is available and ready to run. And then it also allows us to run scheduled plays against the entire cluster as well, or parts of the cluster, lots of different variations.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, that in response to our customers having some kind of a platform where you're like managing all your playbooks and you can run them together. That's been really helpful. This is cool. I haven't heard of this, but it sounds great. Yeah, we have one
Sounds
too.
like, yeah, a good tool. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then there's the one that CIQ maintains. It's also open source called Ascender, so that you can get at GitHub as well. So many options, so many tools. Really, really cool. Anyone else want to share what they're doing with Ansible, with playbooks, with automation, and how that's kind of relating to what they're doing with Warewulf? Or if you have any questions, you're in good company to get some good answers. Alexei, I did have a question for you. So this is being recorded, and my intention was to obviously post it in the Warewulf Slack and then also on our Warewulf YouTube channel. Is there anything in those slides that that is not okay to post in that way?
Yeah, everything is fine with me. Yeah, I like to see the questions and comments. Yeah, they're great if you can like post them somewhere. I already copied the recommendations from Scott. But in terms of like publishing the content, yeah, I'm fine with it. The content I presented is available on my Linux course website, and can be accessed from anywhere. So yeah, it will stay there.
Yeah, that was another thing we kind of like glassed over, but I just want to say how awesome. I mean, we all know that the best way to learn something is to teach it. And you really presented that so well that you were just thinking about Warewulf and maybe read some documentation, read an article, and then you went and taught it to high schoolers that were wanting to learn Linux. That was a really cool story. Thanks for sharing that. And then also, getting the Warewulf name out there. The other thing that was interesting that you brought up is Debian. That is not one that I've heard, but I imagine that, I mean, you can, because it's all containers, right? So I guess that you can take any OS and provision it with Rocky. Is that probably accurate?
Yeah, I can. Debian is, we've been Debian show for a long time. Also try to boom, but we try different OSs. By Debian, very stable. Also like the package management, because before Red Hat came up with YOM and DNF, Debian had apt, and the server platform Proxmox is Debian based. most of, I mean, we essentially, as I said, are a Proxmox shop. Most of our services, like license servers, DNS, web servers, are running in Proxmox containers. So it's kind of like a turnkey solution. Install Proxmox server and you get the containers there. As for the cluster, yeah, I like Debian, but as I said, with Warewulf, you can run anything. Just a matter of spinning up a container and adding it to compute node and rebooting it. Yeah, but yeah, we are Debian shop.
Yeah. Ian's giving me some schooling here. He's like, that's where Ubuntu comes from, Rose.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I just don't hear Debian very often. I only had, like one customer that said they were going from CentOS to Debian, after the whole CentOS issue. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I just don't hear too much of it. But I mean, I guess that makes sense, just like upstream of Ubuntu.
Yeah, everyone knows Ubuntu and Debian essentially. It was like a root for Ubuntu. And what is good about Debian, unlike the other OSs, it's essentially license free. In case you wanna build an OS for something you need, for example, vendors like Dell. If you look into Dell switches, they run Debian. Same is with Ubiquiti. Ubiquiti routers also run Debian. And this is where vendors won't get sued just for using this kind of Linux. That's why it's safe to use. You won't face any license infringement, and won't run into any problems with proprietary ownerships.
That's an interesting point. And now with all the automation, you can kind of do any adjustments that you need.
Yeah, exactly. With Warewulf, you can do anything. You can just throw any container and boot it. That's it.
Yeah. So that was cool too. So Alexei, he shared, you guys can see in the chat that he shared the course, that Linux course that he gave. So if any of you are interested in looking at that or sharing it with your students.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful.
I was thinking about, well, so, as I mentioned, I gave a Warewulf 4 project to students, high school students during internship. And I'm thinking, and during the time I built an instructional cluster. One is essentially there are like 4 servers. One is with Proxmox, and 15 others were used just to boot Warewulf. So I was thinking maybe setting up a short tutorial for PERC 2026, and I started working with a group from Purdue that invited me over to talk at PERC. So I was thinking maybe just given like the introduction with hands-on exercises, as a tutorial. Do you think it will make sense doing it? Or I don't know how many people want to try just Warewulf from scratch. I mean, who never used it, but were thinking about it, were applying it. So this is something I may consider doing.
Yeah, I think that is wonderful. Especially when, I mean, it's kind of funny because obviously the documentation is there and it's great and we can all read, but there's something really different when you have a person, live talking to you and kind of walking you through stuff and telling you how things interact. So whether it's a live thing that you do or it's like a recorded thing that is available to people, everyone learns in a different way, and I think that's really great. I mean, we do a training, but that is like it's part of a contract. Do you know what I mean? So the need and the desire is definitely there. So if you want to do that and then post it in the group or schedule a live thing, like I'm sure that there'll be people there, especially in the university space, where education is very much valued, and understanding things and having more knowledge. So I think that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, I'll consider it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is like perfect timing. Thank you everybody for showing up and being here and sharing all your wonderful things here in the chat. And as always, we will continue the conversation throughout the month in the Slack channel. I think you guys are all in there. If you're not, you can just reach out to me and we'll make sure that you get an invitation to that the Warewulf community Slack. Again, thank you so much. If you want to present or you have an idea of what you would like to hear in a future WUG, please let me know and I'll be, have a wonderful day. And Alexei, again, thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Rosa. And thank you, everyone. It was a great meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Judah. See ya.